today, let's begin with round 49. The title of today's lesson is The Science as well as Supernatural Phenomena and Eastern Philosophy. Scientists make a hypothesis and set up a scientific law after they experiment and verify this hypothesis to be true. The modern people regard the supernatural phenomena as the agnosticism, but it will be the ordinary everyday occurrence in the future. 관상, philosophy of 장명, 사주, 선금, and 토정비결 belong to the Eastern philosophy, and these fields have somewhat theoretical as well as real basis. In addition to it, Aryans do not eat the flesh of other animals, and it is the symbol of the high-level civilization for the human beings to live and exist with other kinds of animals. First of all, let's see about the relationship between religion and science. We can think that science has two phases of its own. The first phase is the academic branch of research, that is the characteristic of experiment and concrete system of truth. The other one is a logical and systematic thinking procedure, or thinking activity. The general concept of science is the first one, but I think the other one is as important as the first one. In other words, not only in the academic field, but in all of the routine everyday life, the thinking activity on the basis of a rational and a logical way of thinking is quite natural and is a matter of course, because the so-called smartphone, LED, radio, internet, nano as well as bio, and megabit-leveled electronic chips have become a part of our everyday life. On the other hand, any scientific method is made by theoretical scientists first, and the theory should be verified by any person with the scientific experiment, and the research should not be contradictory to other science area. When any scientific hypothesis is satisfied with these facts, then the hypothesis can be admitted to be a scientific law. The field which the modern science deals with is limited within the area in which any hypothesis is verified by scientific experiments, and so all of the scientific facts should be the concrete and the verification possible ones, and therefore scientists regard the supernatural phenomena as the facts out of the scientific area, and they think of them involved in the area of religion or agnosticism. However, I think that the humanity do not know the supernatural phenomena because of the limit of the intelligence of them, and so the fourth or higher dimensional world exists concretely, and they belong to the scientific area consequently. If the present speed of scientific development continues, what the last step of development of it could be during the term of 100,000 years? We can suppose that the high technology level can reach some nearly unimaginable God-leveled one with combination of the fourth or fifth dimensional spiritual science. Therefore, they can make sound in the space without any physical visible things, or they can make some of the huge letters in the sky instantly. In other words, most of the mystical phenomena which appear in most of the Bibles of any religion can be explained easily, and those phenomena can be realized very easily with the ultramodern science theory. Generally, men thought that the religious problems like enlightenment, crime, and punishment, virtue and evil, and the fourth-dimensional, mysterious, and supernatural phenomena are above the limit of the human ability, and so they set aside those problems in the area of God. However, if this sort of preoccupation is discarded, and rather, if we think that the modern, educated, rational, and science-oriented person can understand those religious problems fully, then I think that we can enter the highway of enlightenment, run away from the urban ace way of thinking and going into the way of flexible thinking of Galileo with the purpose of entering the completion of our service. On this sort of standpoint, I mentioned and analyzed lots of religious phenomena and thought of the practical ways of applying those methods to the practical life. We can think that the level of enlightenment or the recognition mind of the 40 states of the universe in Buddhism is very religious as well as mystical, and it's unaccessible scientifically. But when we spread the area of science from the experiment verifying subjects like physics, chemistry, earth science or biology, etc., to the scientific or rational thinking activity, and if we think that all of the mysterious phenomena that we have considered so far really exist in the universe with our logical or scientific inference, even though we cannot touch or see them, then religion and science are not split ones, but they are in the same area. Therefore, the religion in the future will be the one in which religion and science, or religion and lots of study as well as philosophy, are combined in one entity. That is, it will be the trans-sectarian religion, 초종파적인 종교 in Korean, or the transcendental religion. Next, let's consider the theme of the physiognomy, lines of palm, 4 pillars for the year, month, day, and hour of one's birth, 토정 secret key, 토정비결, and naming philosophy, 장명 in Korean. It is a very common and traditional activity to get a physiognomical reading of one's face or see the 4 pillars for the year, month, day, and hour of one's birth. And sometimes he lets a naming expert or a person who can make a name in his clan make a name of his son or daughter in Korea. Nowadays, some people do not visit the experts of physiognomy, palm reading, or 4 pillars, 사주 in Korean, 4 pillars, because they think of these activities as sort of superstition. However, many people name their children's names very carefully with the appropriate alphabets for 오행, as well as the good pronunciation. 오행 means Oriental thought of the cubic 5 elements. Even though some of the people name the genuine native pronouncing words, the number of them is quite small. On the Western point of view of rationalism, these sort of Oriental activities can be superstitious because these activities have a little logical basis. But many people visit the experts of these traditional activities, and so we can think that there exists some rational and positive paths in these activities. Most of the people do not know the secret facts in them only. There seems to exist some of the truth in these activities, and the negative facts concerning them are the damages caused by the overbelief of these activities. First of all, let's consider the physiognomy. As we know well, all of the people have their own face, and no one resembles other person completely. Even twins are somewhat different from each other when they are watched in detail. By the way, a certain person is so handsome that he makes us think of a statue of a Greek masterpiece. And some person has not good countenance. Some woman is so beautiful that she deserves an idol of the people. But most of the women have very common countenance. Everyone may have expected to become an ideal countenanced person, but he or she was born to be the present type of body, and he has no one to ascribe it to. It is said that the creator of the present countenance is no one but himself, for his present shape of the face or body has a close relationship with his pre-life. Among all the parts of one's body, the face represents the most exact face of one's mind, because when he's glad, his face smiles with bliss, and when he gets angry, his face gets green and red. It seems that the present shape of one's face is the result of one's thinking, speaking, and activity, or the pattern of his character of his pre-life. In the book 업보차별경, it means the book concerning the different karma. 업보차별경 of Buddhism, Buddha says that the charming face of a person is the result of 10 good karma of his pre-life. It is written in this 원불교 전서, 원불교, the Bible of 원불교, page 71, published in 1977. Okay, it's the old version, and this is the new version. The principal message is that the present charming factor of one's body is the result of good karma of one's pre-life. Anyway, the present face of a person seems to be closely related with the pre-life. Palm lines are concerned with the pre-life of a person too, and I think that they are somewhat related with the present life too. Four pillars, 사주 in Korean. Four pillars are the future divination diagnosis of a person related with the statistical pattern of the activity and the doom of the human beings, because the clock time, day, months, and year of the birth of a person are closely related with the doom of him or her, and they are related with his pre-life as well as his present life. It is said that the secret method of 토정, means 토정비결 in Korean, was made with the help of the God's revelation. Probably those excellent sentences are above the intelligence of the humanity of the earth. The philosophy of naming, 장명철학 in Korean, is too the result of the fourth dimensional Oriental philosophy concerned with the parts of one's name, or the negative and positive Oriental thoughts of the cubic 5 elements, 음양오행 in Korean. In the common sense, when the pronunciation and sound of one's name is good, the functioning of the sound can be planted in the space or in its own spirit. And therefore, it is a matter of course that the contents and sound, as well as the cubic 5 elements of the Oriental philosophy, can be related with the daily doom of a person. The above-mentioned physiognomy, lines of palm, 4 pillars for the year, months, day and hour of one's birth, 토정 secret key, 토정비결, and naming philosophy, all of them can be considered to be superstitious, like the philosophy of change, 주역 in Korean, on the rational point of view of the Westerners. But in reality, many people are quite alarmed at the close relationship of them with the present state of himself. However, it is necessary to think that those things are the Oriental philosophical diagrams once do, and they are very flexible and changeable entities. Next, let's talk about a vegetarian diet. As we saw about the contents in the column of the reincarnation, it is said to be the universe prevalent truth that a human being can be reincarnated into the other animal. An animal can be reincarnated into a human being too. This phenomenon is a quite natural one in the course in which both the human being and animal try to be evolved to the higher level. In other words, as the result of the cause and effect in the road of evolution, if a person has the good activities which are needed for the higher evolution, he can be evolved into the higher level. However, if he commits the bad activities, he can go back or retrogress toward the lower level. According to the result of Mr. Andongmin's spiritual reading concerning other person's pre-lives, when a human being is reincarnated into an other animal, it can remember its pre-life of a human being, and so this animal gets frustrated and regrets quite deeply. On the contrary, when the other sort of animal is reincarnated into a human being, this reincarnated one cannot remember the existence of his pre-life as an animal. This phenomenon is caused by the will of God, who wants any living creature to be enhanced to the higher level of the evolution. Anyway, if a person thinks this sort of principle to be the real truth, it would be against the principle of the universe for a person to eat the flesh of other animals. Therefore, it would be good to think as to how the people living on other planets rather than the Earth deal with this problem of the vegetarian diet. According to the explanation of the woman Aryan Shemiaje, who came from the planet era of the Pleiadian star cluster, which is nearly 500 light years away, the residents there do not eat any meat of the animals. However, when a person is quite weak and powerless, he or she eats meat of an animal which looks like the rabbit, or only sometimes, and which was developed and born by the residents themselves. The contents are in the book Pleiadian Mission, Pleiades 사명, page 136, this book. And on the other hand, and on the other case, in the book 2012, The Great Change of the Earth and the Messages from the Earth, in Korean 2012 지구차원 대전환과 천상의 메시지들, page 354, this book. The residents of the inner world of the earth, 지저세계 in Korean, inner world of the earth are all the complete vegetarians, and they never eat any other animals. Of course, the activity of hunting is banned or prohibited there, and as the residents of the inner world of the world are in the level of the fifth dimension, they can communicate with the fish when they go to the beach of the sea. In other words, the other animals can talk with the residents there by means of the telepathy method. And in this sort of circumstances, it may be impossible to eat any meat of other kinds of animals. Furthermore, Sakyamuni Buddha, Sakamuni in Korean, who is in charge of the position Planet Logos on behalf of the spiritual hierarchy of the earth, prohibits those who believe in his teachings from eating the flesh of animals, as we know well. Nowadays, his teaching is not kept strictly by the common believers, but the Buddhist leaders or monks keep his teachings well now, and so they do not eat any flesh of other animals. Considering all of these facts, we can say that not eating any animals, it coincides with the universe as well as the nature. We can say that if we eat only the vegetable instead of any meat of other animals, it is very hard to go on living everyday life because we become weak. In addition to it, if all the people go toward not eating animals presently, it can become the great problem in the international meat exchanging import and export market. Therefore, that which I mean is that only those who understand the universal prevalent trend of the fifth dimensional high-level world can become the vegetarians. And accordingly, I do not mean all the people should become the vegetarians now. Well, anyway, sometimes we can meet some news that there are some of the villages which are famous for the residents whose life expectancy is quite long. And in this case, most of them have the eating only the vegetable habit. However, there are various steps in eating vegetables only. And so let's consider this vegetarian diet once again. The next sentences introduce some various contents concerning the vegetarian diet. But presently, this internet site has been disappeared. The address is http://www.lightearth.net. For reference, if I tell you about the phase of my vegetarian diet, I am now under the lacto-over diet. Next, let's see about the first step of the vegetarian diet for a person who begins to have the vegetable eating. If you want to begin with the vegetarian diet, you should have the strong belief concerning this vegetable diet. As all the places do not have the appropriate environment for the vegetable diet, if you do not have the firm belief, you are liable to forget it immediately. If you come to know fully what the vegetarian diet is, why you have to get the vegetarian diet, and what sort of influence the vegetarian diet can give to us, the person who has always evaded this vegetarian diet becomes to be fond of it, and he can continue to have the vegetarian diet strenuously even in the bad circumstances. Furthermore, if you consider and look into this vegetarian diet more, it is not difficult to have this vegetarian diet. Though you may find some difficulty in living with other persons around you as you have the vegetarian diet, you will find some efficient way if you try to do it for some time. In the future, if the persons who look for the vegetable food or material grow more, the scale of the vegetable goods will become greater, and it will get easier to have the vegetarian diet. Even if a person who begins to have the vegetarian diet finds it somewhat hard to continue, we can foresee a good prospect that he will meet the good environment to have the vegetarian diet in the future. If you want to become a vegetarian, you may as well take the following things as a reference. As you say that you try to become a vegetarian, and if you eat this instant food which was made from the minutely destructed food material, as well as the white boiled rice, then you may easily experience the deficiency of the nutrition. especially if you do not eat the usual food suddenly, you can meet the withdrawal symptom, 금단 증상 in Korean, withdrawal symptom, and it can cause the bodily weakness temporarily. Therefore, even if you start to have the vegetarian diet, it is desirable to moderate the level of it in accordance with the private health level. The vegetarianism is the attitude in which a person has got a special belief concerning this vegetarianism, and he or she puts it in practice in his real life. When a person practices the vegetarian diet without a firm belief of the vegetarianism, he can be called a person who likes the vegetarian diet, but he cannot be called a genuine vegetarian based upon the vegetarianism. However, even though he is not a genuine vegetarian, it is not any matter for him to put the vegetarian diet in the real life. To lead a life of a vegetarian means that he does not eat any meat of other animals at all, and he eats the vegetable only. However, it is difficult to become a complete vegetarian because he has to lead his life with lots of persons, and each person has the individual and spiritual circumstances concerning this vegetable diet. Therefore, it is the general trend that each vegetarian has the special levels in accordance with his environment, and he chooses the appropriate method for him. Next, types of the vegetarian diet. The members of the International Vegetarian Confederation classify the vegetarian types as following. First of all, the basis of the vegetarian diet is not to eat any animal with 4 legs containing the red-colored flesh. However, different from the International Vegetarian Confederation made by the Westerners who have got a high ratio of eating flesh of the animals, most of the domestic vegetarian groups draw the line of the limit of the vegetarian diet until the lacto-ovo-vegetarian. And when it is said that a person is in the state of the religious vegetarian, he is now under the limit of the lacto-vegetarian. Next, let's see about the kinds of the vegetarian diet. First of all, semi-vegetarian. This is the vegetarian diet containing the birds and the domestic fowl, poultry. See? And the next, pesco-vegetarian. Pesco. Even though they do not eat the source of bird as well as the poultry, they eat the fish and the eatables of the sea. Okay? This is the pesco-vegetarian. And lacto-ovo-vegetarian. Okay? Even though they do not eat the fish, they eat eggs, is ovo, eggs, and milk is lacto. And next, lacto-vegetarian. In this case, the vegetarian does not eat all the eatables related with the animals, such as the marine products, eggs, etc. However, he can drink milk and eat the milk-related eatables. And next, vegan vegetarian. Vegan. It is the complete vegetarian, and he does not eat all the animal-related eatables containing the milk-related ones, and he eats only the plant-related eatables. Next, fruit vegetarian. He does not eat the root or the stems, and he eats only the leaves or the fruit or the grain. Next, uncooked vegetarian. Even though he is a vegetarian, he does not eat all the heated food, and he eats only the live food or the live food which is processed. Next, 청구, clean mouth 청구. That is genuine or pure, it means. 청구 vegetarian. He is the genuinely pure plant-related food, and he evades the 5 hot eatables thoroughly, like the Welsh or spring onion, 파 in Korean, 파, garlic, 마늘, onion, 양파, while rocambole, 달래, and leek or scallion, 부추. In this case, there are the 청구 lacto vegetarian and the 청구 vegan vegetarian. Then, what sort of vegetarian is good? It is up to the individual person who has to decide it all by himself. He has to see about all the knowledge concerning the vegetarian, and he has to decide the problems as to what sort of vegetarian is the most appropriate to him. There are lots of reasons as to why the people enter the gate of the vegetarian world. They contain the relevance of the animal life, the preservation of the social environment, the religion as well as the belief, the maintenance of health, the diet, the discipline of the mind as well as the body, the effort of changing the physical constitution better, etc. Anyway, at last, the guideline of the vegetarian level will be decided by the level of one's understanding and belief concerning the vegetarian. The level of the vegetarian which I recommend to you is that of the lacto-vegetarian, with the food there is no reality of life. And if a person who wishes to discipline his mind or her mind and body wants to become vegetarian, I recommend the 청구 vegan vegetarian to him. Next, let's see about the meaning of the vegetarian diet. We usually think that the vegetarian diet has the meaning that a person eats the vegetable. However, it means that he or she eats the sound or whole diet. The Korean word of 채소 is pronounced vegetable in English. And in this case, it means that the word vegetable has the combination of the two words, that is, vegetus. Vegetus means completeness, plus herbal. Herbal means the existence which makes a person to do something. The basis of the plant is any plant which has seeds, and so the meaning of the vegetarian diet means the diet which helps a person soundly with the face of body and spirit on the basis of the vegetable trend eating. Therefore, if a person eats vegetable-related food simply, we cannot say that he is a vegetarian. Even though they sell the vegetarian food in which they say there is no animal-related ingredient, there are lots of bad food concerning this vegetarian food. There are the food containing the chemical added spice, drug ingredient spice, agricultural chemicals, etc., which are mixed with the high technology of making tablets or the industrial process. As these things hinder or bar the completeness, even if we eat the plant-related food, it can be far from the vegetarian diet. Due to the same reason, though the alcohol, cigarette are not the source of the animal eating diet, they do not contain these things in the vegetarian diet. That is, the vegetarian should not drink or eat this food. Next, basis of the vegetarian diet. First, the vegetarian diet has the basis upon the plant which the land gives, and it contains the mushroom too. And second, the vegetarian person does not eat any animals or the attached food of them. And third, concerning the egg or the spawn of fish, as they are the eggs which are the fundamental things, usually the vegetarians do not eat them. As for me, I eat them. In the case of the milk of the animals, even though it is the animal-related food, we can obtain it without killing the animals. And as it is produced for the purpose of eating food, we can drink it when we are weak in the course of treatment or when we need some nutrition. 5. Vegetarian diet should be accompanied by the whole or complete material as much as possible. For example, they use the unpolished rice instead of the white rice, and they eat the raw wheat instead of the white wheat. In other words, they use the grain which is more complete or more whole, and which is the grain before the polish. If a vegetarian is weak in digestion, or if he's in the state of healing the disease, he may as well moderate his individual situation in accordance with the circumstances. 6. To become a vegetarian who is the various food means to eat the following 6 sorts of food. The first sort is the general grain, and the second sort is the beans, and the third sort is nut, and the fourth sort is the vegetable, and the fifth sort is the seaweed, and the sixth sort is the fruit. Well, from now on, I will tell you my comprehensive opinion on the whole lecture here. I think that after watching all of the rounds of my lecture, you have obtained a lot of information concerning what is the human being consisted of body and spirit. What is the shape of the fourth dimensional world to which all of the people go after death? Is the cycle of the reincarnation as well as the cause and effect true? What is the real shape of the fifth dimensional world which will unfold on the surface of the earth? What is the concept of the Almighty God? That is 법신불, 로고스, 우주 절대정신, 상제님, 하나님, 창조주, 대황조님, etc. Does UFO really exist? What is the scientific principle of the UFO flight? Does the inner world of the earth, which is said to be in the inner part of the earth, really exist? How can we have the comprehensive mind discipline practice containing yoga, shindan, 식단, mind control, sun, music, appreciation, and prayer? What is the ultimate purpose of the life of the radiance of the earth? Well, on all of these questions, I presume that you have obtained lots of enlightenment. Well, all in all, we, the living existence created by the Almighty God, who is the absolute spirit of the universe, we have come to the present step of the evolution through the process of the process of the raw material of the mineral resources, plant, and at last to the present highest existence of the human being, who is at the top of the pyramid of the creatures. However, the present step of the human being is not the end of the evolution, but as all of the creatures of the universe advance toward the destination of the larger and higher steps, we human beings have come to the point of the most wonderful and rare opportunity of turning our body into the light one of the fifth dimension. And the whole situation of the globe is that we are in the first and second phase of the fifth dimension now. Furthermore, if only we have changed our body into the fifth dimensional right one, then there's no other death in the future, and we will be able to live in the world of paradise, which is full of love, compassion, amusement, affluence, and health. However, the paradise of the fifth dimension is not the end of the human evolution, but men or women are doomed to advance toward the higher steps of the sixth, seventh, eighth, and at last they will reach the ultimate goal of the 12th dimension, which step is known to be the present one, where the universe or the creative universe God has reached up till now. It is known that the ultimate goal-reaching person will be united with the God Almighty of the universe at last, and they will become just one existence. What an alarming fact it is. However, my opinion is slightly different from this fact. As we have already watched my second part of the column, the theory of the universe, 우주론, the universe in which we live, repeats the birth and death, namely the reincarnation cycle for 7 times, and at last it becomes a genuine light body universe called the Ur universe. However, this Ur universe is not the final destination of the universe evolution process, but it becomes a central universe at last, after the repetition of the reincarnation cycle for 7 times again, or more than 7 times again. The Ur universe continues to create new universes, and the whole family of the universes surrounding the central universe is called the absolutum, and the number of it is approximately 90 times of 10. That is, we have to put 49 zeros to 10 in all. 49 zeros to 1 in all. 1, 1, 0, 0, 0, 0, 49 zeros. Now, a person who has become one body with the universe, and again with the Ur universe, will finally become a new universe. What a surprising fact it is. A person can become the God of the universe at the ultimate step of his or her evolution. Then there comes another question as to what the central universe will become as it evolves continually. As far as I know, there is no one who has answered this question until now, and I presume that this central universe is not the end of the evolution procedure of the universe, but it becomes a different phase, which can be called the absolute universe or the ultimate universe. In other words, there is no end in the process of the evolution of any creatures or any universes. If we accept this theory of the universe evolution, the purpose of living of the human beings on the earth looks distinct. Here, I'd like to make my present purpose clear. That is, I will make my body the fifth dimensional transparent one, which fact was shown to the disciples of Jesus Christ after his death. As we know well, he appeared just in front of them, of the disciples, in an attic of a house, and his body was just made of light itself, but it looked just the same as the common person. He attained the light body after his death, but now I want to exchange my body into the light one before I die on the earth. We can achieve this purpose easily thanks to the fact that our present global village has entered the photon belt. Photon belt means the energy belt which is situated in the middle place of our galaxy. And we can receive energy more than we received in the past ages. In order to achieve this sort of purpose, I used some new methods in addition to the traditional ones. That is, I used the method of receiving the energy of the seven-colored flame situated in Telos, receiving the energy from the central sun, receiving the energy from my holy plasma, receiving the energy as I walk on a road, receiving the sun energy, and reading the sentences of the masters, and turning my concepts of the everlasting life with that of the masters of the heaven, etc. Therefore, my ultimate and greatest target is to make my body a sort of fifth dimensional light body before I pass away from this earth. And if this purpose is fulfilled, I think that I will reach the goal of the mentor or the predecessor of this spirituality and mind discipline practice. However, even though I discipline my body and mind every day, I always bear in mind that the most important thing is to live earnestly and morally, as I said before. What about going toward this destination with me hand in hand?